Taking the calls for today. Today, we're going to speak about Social Security disability and both kinds. There are two different kinds of Social Security disability. I talk about this, once every couple of months, but I still have clients coming in. Of course, not everybody listens to the show. Well, almost everybody does. But I still have clients coming in not knowing really much about Social Security disability. I advise you, do not go on the internet to educate yourself about the policies, only because there are a lot of things on the internet written by different people, not just what you see on the internet, but written by either in Social Security disability, you do not have to be an attorney to have a client and go before an administrative law judge. So there are a lot of people out there giving information, some of which is not correct. If you have questions, certainly feel free to call our office, 317-631-5151, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. That's much better than trying to find what you're looking for on the internet. The only time, if you're considering applying, that I want you to go on the internet is to apply. During the pandemic, everyone that applied could apply on the internet. I believe that is still the case. It is the case for Title II or SSDI, and I'll explain all that. It did not used to be the case for SSI or Title 16, but with the pandemic, everybody had to apply because the offices were closed. I think what the offices are doing now is, and every region is going to be different. When I say the office, I mean in Indiana. They make an appointment for you to come in and apply for SSI. Now that's SSI only, not SSDI. SSDI, you've always been able, well, since we were using computers, you've always been able to apply on the internet. And when you apply on the internet, you're looking for a certain web page, but be careful because attorneys are making their web page look like it is the government. So, for instance, I have had clients call me and say, Social Security appointed a lawyer for me. No, they didn't. They can't. They won't. What Social Security, what you need to do is when you apply for Social Security, you apply, look for ssa.gov. You're always going to find a .gov. It will never be anything else other than .gov. So Social Security Administration.gov, SSA.gov. But you may have to go down 3 or 4 web pages to find that, because attorneys make, like I said, they make their web page look like it's the federal government. There'll be a Social Security card on it and it looks pretty real. But you can't have, you must have .gov. So if it's anything else, it is not Social Security. It's not the government. So let's assume you have the Social Security Administration and you're going to apply. The things to get ready, to take to your computer. And by the way, the Indianapolis Library, in especially the downtown library, but I think they all of the libraries have it, will have computers for you to use if you don't have one at home. You're going to take with you to the computer, of course, your name, address, and Social Security number, and the jobs you have done, your past jobs, and approximately the dates that you did them, why you're not there any longer, better opportunity, I was fired, I was sick too much, any reason why you're not there any longer, and the approximate dates that you were there. So you don't need to give the day, the month, but it's helpful if you can say fall 2010. You're going to go back 15 years. This isn't a lifetime. You go back 15 years. Take that information with you. You want the name of the job. They'll ask you your supervisor's name. Most people don't remember their supervisors' names after 15 years. If you don't, you just put you don't remember. They want to know approximately how much did you earn. And then they will ask you about the qualifications for the job that you did. Did you lift? Did you carry? How much did you lift and carry? How often did you lift or carry that certain amount? So if you were on a production line and you had to lift 2,000 times a day, 50 pounds, that's important for them to know. Also, they'll want to know how many hours a week you worked. Now, that's going to show in other ways also. Social Security will have an earnings statement. You know, the government knows how much all of us earn and a lot more. So they'll have an earnings statement for you. And when they ask you what you've earned, if you're off a little bit, that's fine. They know what you've earned. So let's get to basics. There are two types of Social Security disability, and they're both disability, not retirement. Social Security retirement. When you log on and you're applying, the first screen you will see is, it'll say, welcome to the Social Security Administration of the United States. And it will have, typically it has squares. So what can we help you with? Did you lose your Social Security card? Do you need a Social Security number? Do you want to apply for disability? And of course you click on there. You do not click on Social Security retirement. Now, Social Security, either type, stops at 65, and then retirement kicks in. But you don't want to apply for Social Security retirement. If you have already at 62, that's fine. You can be disabled up to the age of 65. So when you apply online, after you filled out the application, and let me tell you something that's very helpful. When you are applying, the application is, probably 15 to 20 pages. A lot of it goes quickly. It's about an hour to an hour and a half, assuming you've brought everything to the computer that you need. But there is a pause button, and you can come back. They'll tell you the amount of time you have, though, so you can't fill in half of it today and the rest of it next week. But you can go get information if you need to. You will apply online, and Social Security will give you a reference number so that you know you have applied online. And then within a few hours, you will get just a document saying, thank you for your application, your confirmation number is. You need to keep all of that. So if you don't have a printer, you need to write it down so you've got a confirmation number. Social Security is overwhelmed. Disability, Social Security disability. When I blankly say Social Security, I mean disability. They're overwhelmed. At this point, they are I don't want to say farming out, but kind of, some of our cases to other states. We have Ohio, Illinois, we've had some in Kentucky, Michigan, and when this started, we even had some in California. I think as the other states get busier, they can't take care of ours. But I would say a fourth of my cases, or maybe a third, are from out-of-state judges. I'm grateful that they're able to help us. What I don't care for is when we have our judges here, and we do, and you've practiced Social Security for a long period of time, you know the judges. The judges know you, they know the kinds of cases you bring to them. And I'm a little more comfortable with that than judge whoever. And they're all great judges. It's just that I don't know them. And I just prefer to know who I'm dealing with. But after you apply and you copy down your confirmation number, within a few months, 3-4 months, generally not more than 4, you get a document. It's from Social Security, and it's either telling you you are disabled. Congratulations, kind of. I mean, nobody wants to be disabled, but you will get benefits, or you're denied. If you're denied, Social Security gives you 60 days, 2 months only, to appeal the denial. That's where we come in. I tell my clients, and many clients contact me right after they've applied. So we don't know if they're going to be granted benefits or they're going to be denied. But I tell my clients, call me the minute you get anything from Social Security. Because as busy as we are, 60 days, 2 months goes by pretty quickly. And clients call me all the time and say, oh, I just got it a couple weeks ago. And then they send it to me. I had one of those last month. They sent it to me and it was March. Time just goes by so quickly. What you'll have to do then is reapply. Social Security will accept it if it's late for very, very significant reasons. You had a stroke, you were in the hospital, and you couldn't finish the application. You had seizures and you couldn't finish the application. You were in a coma, you were in a car accident, and it has to be a serious accident. Otherwise, and I can understand, they would just be overwhelmed with all types. They have to have some regulations. So after your first denial, 60 days, then what we do is file the request for reconsideration. We're saying, wait, Social Security, this person is disabled. And at that point, depending on the disability, we may send some medical records. Also, when you file for disability, they're going to ask you the name of your doctors, the name, the address, when you saw them. They don't want a doctor that you saw when you were 10 years old and had measles, only the last 15 years, their address, the doctor that you saw. So if you have a large practice group that you go to, they want to know what doctor is yours, because Social Security will contact some, and I use some, well, they get some records. They do not get all the records. That's one of the reasons you need an attorney. They just can't. I had a client, I still have the client, we haven't gone to a hearing, that has 17 different doctors. So we have to pay for the medical records, but so does Social Security. And they just don't do it. They get 1 or 2 documents from 1 or 2 doctors. They don't even get all the information from one doctor, but they'll get a little and then make a decision. And unless they happen to get the page that says this person is incredibly disabled because, then you're going to be denied again. On that second or third denial, it's after the reconsideration. You apply, you're denied. You apply, you're denied. After the second denial, we will file a request for hearing. And it's at that point that most claimants receive disability. That gives the judge a chance to talk to you, to go through your medical records. If the judge doesn't hit all the highlights in your medical records, I will have gone through them, and I will do that. And I prefer in some instances to do that because I've looked over your medical records, I've read them, I know what your disability is. A client said to me one time, you didn't say, after I was questioned, you didn't say anything to the judge. Well, sometimes the judges question the claimant themselves. They've been doing this for years, many people a day. They know what they're asking and they know what they're looking for. If I feel the judge has asked the pertinent questions, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. He knows or she knows what he or she needs to meet the Social Security listings. I promise you, I have never in 33 years gone to a hearing without knowing the records, not just looking at them, knowing them. I can tell you, and I do generally with every client, more about your medical history than you're aware. I'll ask them, what about Dr. Jones? Well, who is he? I don't remember him. Well, you went to him because you were having headaches. Do you remember now? Oh, yeah. So, and then we have to hurry up and get Dr. Jones. So I do know your medical records, and I know how those medical records fit into what's called a listing of impairments. Social Security has, and if you're interested, you just like being at the computer, you can put in listing of impairments. It's a term of art by Social Security, so you'll get just the listing of impairments. And you can see that every claimant that prevails, that wins, must meet or equal a listing. Now, meeting a listing is having exactly what the listings say, exactly meeting that listing. But the term is meet or equal. So you could have 2 or 3 different impairments, and those impairments together could equal a listing. But I'm getting away from the basics of Social Security disability. There have been some changes. When I started practicing Social Security disability, you could receive SSI. SSI is given to the claimant that meets the listing medically and income-wise. If a person has not worked for a little over 5 years and does not have, or has worked, but doesn't meet what Social Security calls substantial gainful activity, which is a certain amount of money, then they qualify only for SSI. If you have worked and you have the qualified amount of time in, you receive SSDI, which is a percent back of what you paid in. When you work, you pay into Social Security. The average person receives, I just wrote these numbers down this morning because they change all the time. The average amount of benefits, and this is taking in SSI and SSDI and then averaging them, the average monthly payment for disability is $1,483 per month. And then almost always there's a back payment also, which is a lump sum amount. And that happens from either the beginning of the impairment, or in SSI from the date you file. SSI is a little more restrictive than SSDI. Now remember, SSI is when you have not worked within the past 5.5 years. In SSI, you receive $1,767 a month. That's exorbitant. I know it doesn't sound that way to you, but when I began doing this, it was $400 and $500 a month on SSI. And the SSI, again, is when you've not paid into the system in, let's say, 5 years. SSDI, you have paid into the system. And if I said the average amount you receive is $1,483, and SSI monthly amount is more than that, well, why don't I just ask for SSI? Well, let me tell you. Under SSI, first, there are no benefits to dependents. Also, and there are on SSDI, there is on SSDI. Also on SSI, you have a limited amount of income and a limited amount of resources. On SSI, only $2,000 can come into your house per month. So if you have a spouse, you're disabled, you have a spouse that's making $3,500 a month, you don't get SSI. None of that counts with SSDI. Your spouse can be a millionaire, and SSDI is looking for you only. What do you bring in if you qualify for SSI? So there are no unearned income limits in SSDI. You can have portfolios, you can have stocks, bonds, retirement, 401ks, you can have whatever you have. Those are unearned income. That's not the same as SSI. Generally, it doesn't conflict, but sometimes it does. Generally, it's not a problem under SSI. If someone hasn't worked in a little over 5 years, probably they don't have a retirement or a 401k, or they've used it. But that is an incentive for SSDI. The income resource is not important under SSDI, the resources. Under SSI, you're allowed a car that you need to use for medical appointments. Resources mean a lot of things, not just money coming in. Now, when I tell you the procedures, for instance, the appealing after every 60 days or before 60 days has lapsed, those procedures are the same for SSI and SSDI. And it is not, keep in mind, it is not retirement. Our phone number to call in, maybe I should have said this a half hour ago, our phone number is 1-833-653-3529 or 1-833-N-LEE Law. N is in Nathaniel, N-LEE Law. That kind of all runs together, but I gave you the number also. So let's have some callers. I will take callers on retirement benefits, but I'd like some callers on Social Security disability. That's how we all learn.
We have one question in the chat from online.
Okay, I don't.
The question is,
I have a dependent adult. Okay, I see it. This question is, I have a dependent adult child with a disability who is not currently receiving disability benefits due to never being employed. Can he obtain disability benefits through my Social Security upon my death? Yes, but he also, if it's a dependent adult child with a disability, he also can get disability himself. Did he get disability when he was a child? That's one question. Yes, he can apply. Even if he didn't, he can apply for disability now. We need medical records, but he's certainly the medical records that qualify the disability, but he certainly is eligible for Social Security disability. Now, I say that in a generic way because I don't know what the disability is. But if it's an adult child that definitely cannot work, of course, he is entitled to disability on his own. It would be SSI, but he's entitled to disability. A lot of group homes require you to file for Social Security disability, of course, for their income, for their group home income. The caller has said no disability as a child. It doesn't, the only thing that the disability as a child, the only difference it makes is we would have some medical records, but he can apply as an adult. And when you say he's not a child, I'm assuming this disabled person is over the age of 18, and they certainly can apply. Absolutely. Then it's up to the attorney and then later to Social Security whether they meet the listing. And if they're not able to work, I assume they meet the listing. You certainly can let me know what the disability is, and I can give you, without looking at the medical records, just a cursory response as to whether they would meet the listing. But typically, if someone's been disabled as a child and remaining disabled, generally they meet the listing. And the listing is for SSI. And as I said, it's $1,767 a month plus assets, resources less than $2,000. And that applies to the child too. So that would be the income coming into the house. Another question, how does Social Security define disability? Does that include mental disabilities? Absolutely, absolutely. I would say that I have at least a third, if not a half, of my disability clients with mental disabilities. Some have physical and mental, others have mental. The important part for all disability cases is the medical records. You must have medical records. You cannot go to a Social Security disability hearing and say, I need to be paid every month because my back hurts. That it sounds ridiculous, but you have to have medical records that substantiate the disability. And sometimes that's hard with mental disabilities because sometimes mental patients do not want treatment, or if they get treatment, it's not consistent. It's important that you have consistent treatment with both mental and physical, but especially important in mental. But mental disabilities, as I said, if you look at listing of impairment, there are many mental disabilities and the symptoms that they cause listed. Schizophrenia is almost always granted disability with records verifying the severity. Again, bipolar, again, with the records there that verify the disability, what they can and cannot do, and the mood swings. But mental is just as important and receives benefits just as often as physical disabilities do. And that goes, there are childhood disabilities. That goes for a child's Social Security disability and an adult Social Security disability. When ADHD was prevalent, I'd say, maybe 15, 20 years ago, it was very difficult. Just about every child had ADHD to some limit, and it was very difficult to qualify anyone for ADHD. But I had one client who brought the child, and for a child disability case, you must bring the child. The judge, not the doctor, the judge will question the child, even as little as 4 and 5 years old. But this child came into the hearing room and disconnected all the computers, turned out the lights, and I can tell you that, yes, we got disability. The child could not sit down, even on medication. But short of that, ADHD was difficult because the medications are so good now. The disability for children right now is autism. And there are so many variations and symptoms with autism. The difficult area to get disability in autism is Asperger's, because Asperger's children or patients are highly bright and skilled and very intelligent and go to school. The issue generally by the time a child with Asperger's applies, the issue is social contacts, the sociability of the child. And the child will tell you they are smart, they know they are, and they do well in school, but they prefer to be home. They would like to be homeschooled. They don't want to be out. They don't have friends. And that's not like other children their age. And that's where what Social Security does is they look at the disability, they look what how the child is disabled, but then they also look to compare that child to other children of that age. And with the medical, qualifying them, and then the social, that's where you have a favorable decision. But I talked to you about, and of course, children's benefits are always SSI. Children haven't worked. But I talked to you about SSI and SSDI and the appeals process that you must appeal. And the child's process is just the same. Anytime you're applying for disability, the process is the same. Whether it's SSI, SDI, or a child's benefit, they're all the same. The 3 different levels, the 60-day time limit to appeal, they're all the same. I wanted to talk to you about a trial work period. When you are getting Social Security disability, you are entitled to a trial work period. And the trial work period lasts for 9 months. They do not need to be consecutive months. And in that trial work period, you can receive an income for working over the limit. if you complete the trial work period, Social Security is going to look at your case again. If this person can work for 9 months, now I said they don't need to be consecutive. So if it has taken you 3 years to work 9 months, that's a little different. But if it takes you a year to work 9 months, Social Security will do a review on that case because you've been able to work. But some people want to be able to go back to work. I have many clients, well, not many, but I'd say a few that have what's called a closed period of disability. Let me give you our phone number one more time. 1-833-653-3529. 1-833-653-3529 or 1-833-N-Lee Law. That's our phone number. If you give us a call, and you don't have to ask only Social Security disability questions. That I do Social Security and workers' comp. However, we have attorneys doing just about everything else in the firm. We do personal injury. Nate Lee does personal injury, car accidents, truck accidents, slip and fall, wrongful death, medical malpractice. We have Nathaniel does medical malpractice also. We do probate, meaning guardianships. I myself do guardianships. So you call the office if it's an area that we do not do at this point. We used to have a criminal attorney that did criminal law, and we're looking to include that shortly again, but we do not have that. But we have a number of good attorneys that we can refer you to. So call the office. If there's a question that you didn't get answered on the show this morning, call the office Monday morning and ask for Marcia Kossel, and I'll be glad to answer your question.
Attorney Kossel, you have 2 questions in the chat from online.
Okay, one question. My disability benefits were dropped. I was also dropped from Medicaid. Are they connected? How can I appeal? Yes, they are connected. I assume they are connected. They could be connected. Let me say that. When you receive SSI, that's another reason. When I said SSDI has many benefits, SSDI, you receive Medicare with 24 months after you begin receiving benefits. You're automatically entitled to Medicare. Under SSI, you're entitled to Medicaid. You can qualify for Medicaid under SSI. So when the disability benefits were dropped, I assume those were both linked, and yes, Medicaid was dropped. How can I appeal? Well, you can appeal to there's 2 separate appeals. You can appeal to Medicaid if you meet their guidelines as you are now. If your disability benefit was dropped, there has to be a reason. Either they reviewed your file and your medical did not meet or equal the listing, your medical disability, or you were earning too much money under SSI. When you tell me Medicaid, that tells me SSI. And there's a limit that you can earn. Social Security wants you to be able to work, just not earn what Social Security calls substantial gainful activity. If you can work that much, then you're not disabled. So yes, you can appeal. You can file for Social Security again, and you can appeal the Medicaid. So yes, for both. Can I apply for disability benefits for an adult child with schizophrenia if he is unwilling to get treatment? This is difficult. If you with the treatment comes the diagnosis of schizophrenia. Without the diagnosis, you are entitled to nothing. We need the doctor's diagnosis of schizophrenia, of hearing voices. of seeing, typically my schizophrenic clients will say, I feel like I'm being followed. I know everybody knows what I'm doing and they hate me. There's this paranoia that sometimes goes along with schizophrenia, but you've got to have the medical diagnosis. The other thing you can possibly do to get the diagnosis, if you say that the adult child is unwilling to get treatment, does this adult child have the diagnosis? Typically, sometimes schizophrenic folks are arrested. Where is the diagnosis that can be shown to the doctor or to the judge that this child or this adult child has schizophrenia? If he has been incarcerated and those records show schizophrenia. However, the drugs nowadays for schizophrenia help a lot. So it's important that they do get medical treatment. It's rough. You can try to get a guardianship over this child or this adult child. Just because the adult child is harming themselves, living on the street, eating spoiled food, the court will not give you a guardianship. If the child would agree that you have a guardianship, with that guardianship, you can get medical treatment for the child. This is it's a hard situation, and you feel free to call the office tomorrow or Monday, and I will help you all I can. The guardianship is the best way to go because you have control then over the medication generally. The next question, I do not work and my medical situation has not changed.
That was a response to the previous question.
Okay.
The medication being dropped.
There's also a response. He has been diagnosed, but as an adult, he has the option to opt out of treatment.
That was a response to the last question about the
schizophrenia, right? I understand he has we all have the option to opt out of treatment. No one can force us. If it's diabetes, whatever, no one can force us to have treatment. You can if you're the guardian, but even then it's difficult. How do you capture an adult child to make the child take the medication? It's very difficult. I had a case with a psychiatric nurse whose daughter was schizophrenic, living in an apartment with no heat, no water, and no electricity, and the food that was in the refrigerator was spoiled. So the court would not give her a guardianship. She had not been sick from what she was doing. She has the right to, now what the landlord says about that is completely different, but she has the right to live her life without interference unless she's hurting herself. And then the hurting themselves has to be significant enough that the court believes they need a guardian. I don't know if this is a separate question or not. I do not work and my medical situation has not changed. That may be part of the original question. But my medical situation has not changed. I don't understand that.
That was a response to the question about the disability benefits being dropped.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. A couple questions up. Okay. My disability benefits were dropped. I was also dropped from Medicaid. Are they connected? And the additional information, I do not work and my medical situation has not changed. To that, I would tell you, Social Security does drop benefits from time to time. They're not perfect. If you met the listing initially and your medical situation has not changed, then you should still meet the listings. Listings change from time to time, but the changes are minute. They wouldn't just have such a broad sweep that it would disqualify you. I suggest that you talk to your doctor. I'm sure your doctor possibly suggested that you apply for disability. And if your medical situation has not changed, appeal. Let Social Security know. If they sent you a letter telling you you are not going to receive disability benefits any longer effective and they gave you a date, they tell you on the back or even the front of that letter that you have the right to appeal. Social Security's appeals are 60 days. I don't know of an appeal within the Social Security Administration that's not at least 60 days. So you have 60 days to appeal them terminating benefits, and you file what's called a request for reconsideration. You can call our office and I'll help walk you through that. Or if you had an attorney working with you initially, have the attorney help you with that. And if the reconsideration, your 60 days has lapsed, then you need to refile. And everyone says, I don't want to refile. It's such a long process. Generally, it's a year to 18 months. When I first started doing this, it was 2.5 to 3 years. And the newspaper was full of articles, people living in cars, people living on streets because they were entitled to benefits, but it just took so long. So Social Security has amped up what they're doing. And that's why we have people from out of state helping with the hearings. So the only thing you can do is either two options within that appeal time appeal by filing the reconsideration, or we can refile completely. I think I've answered all questions. Let me give you the number again. We're getting close to time here. The number is 1-833-653-3529 or 1-833-N-Lee Law. That's the phone number. On SSI, I said there were a lot of different benefits that you qualify for, and SSI is the gold standard. That's what you want to be able to receive. Not only do you receive all unearned income, such as retirement, if you're on retirement, if you're on long or short-term disability. Generally, long and short-term disability stops when and they require you to apply for Social Security disability, and then it stops. And generally, depending on your policy, I've only seen one policy where you have not had to pay back your long-term disability. But you can still receive, if you don't have to pay it back and it doesn't stop, you can still receive that on SSDI. So there are a lot of reasons that you want SSDI. Let me see what we haven't covered here. This has just been a cursory overview. If you have not received, well, wait, we have a question here. Medicaid question: to SS Medicaid being dropped, waiting 1 year for an appeal is not an option. I will be without medication for a year. Can I sue the Social Security Administration, or can my family sue if I die? Well, if you think waiting a year is long, suing the Social Security Administration will make that look like a day. You can. It's not going to change anything. Medicaid can be, if this is the same supplement to the first question about both being dropped, reapply for the Medicaid. If your situation is that dire that you can't be without your medication, Medicaid will you'll be entitled to Medicaid again. Then you can apply for Social Security disability if the Medicaid is that important. It usually is for just about everybody. And Medicaid doesn't take a year. You need to go to the Medicaid office and reapply. My hunch is when Social Security dropped you, and if you're that sick, I'm not sure why Medicaid or why Social Security dropped you. If they did anyone speak to you? What gave Social Security the notion that your condition was getting better?
How old are you now, man? 10?
Hello?
Sorry, please continue. That was an interruption.
Okay. If your condition is not getting better and apparently worse, you should not have been dropped from Social Security disability. But apply for Medicaid. That's a couple of months to get Medicaid, and they have a process to speed things through. So apply for Medicaid again. You can't be without medication for a year, and you can certainly go to the hospital. They do take patients here in Indianapolis anyway, take patients without Medicaid, without any benefits, and you'll get treated and you'll get some medication at least, waiting for the Medicaid, and then apply for the Social Security disability. It confuses me that if you're that ill, why Social Security would drop you. But I'm sure it has happened. And as I said, Social Security is in not dire situations, but they're pressed to the limits. And I'm not sure, there was a hiring freeze. I'm not sure if they're allowed to hire yet. So it could just be a Social Security mistake. It happens. But get Medicaid. I hope that was a good enough answer. I don't think you've reapplied for the Medicaid. You think it has to be all one thing, and it doesn't. The other thing, though, of course, with SSDI is you get Medicare, and that's not going to be dropped. If your medical condition improves, and I was going to tell you about a closed period of disability. If you have a condition and in order to receive Social Security, maybe this is where I should have started, you need to have a medical condition that will last at least 1 year. It must last at least 1 year. And I have had clients where I have fought to get to that 12th month, but we've done it. So it must last 1 year or result in death. If the doctor says you have 2 years at the most. So it must last for a year or result in death. And I have had clients that the condition has lasted 18 months and they want to stop Social Security disability. They've been working, they want to work, they want to be back earning income, and it's called a closed period of disability for just obvious reasons. Judges are, I don't know that I've ever had a closed period of disability denied. When I say judge, my client is considering going back to work in September. So we have a closed period of disability. The judge is fine with that, of course. And that really is the way that Social Security disability should be, if possible. This one question says that they may possibly die. So if you're going to die, you're not going to have a closed period of, well, you might, but that's a serious medical condition. But certain surgeries, I had a person with open heart surgery or a transplant, but they wanted to go back to work after a period of time, and they were allowed to do some work after a period of time, but not for a year and a half. So they had a closed period of disability. I hope that answered the question about Social Security dropping both. When you get SSI, you qualify for Medicaid. It still has to be applied for. So it's not both together always, although generally it is, because if you haven't worked, you don't have health insurance. There are other kinds of health insurance, HIP, Healthy Indiana program. Those are all different. And if you need health insurance, before you get Social Security disability, apply on the, no, I don't want to say Obamacare, there is that's still available, I believe. And you could apply through the internet for, I can't think of the word that's used right there, but you can apply for that too. And if you're not working, I'm not sure what the qualifications are there. The Affordable Care Act, correct. And that's still available. Apply there. It's kind of hard to weed through all of it, but it's still available, as is Healthy Indiana and Medicaid. There's got to be something there for you, other than an emergency room. Well, I have discussed the two types of Social Security disability. So there is disability for just about anyone who qualifies for disability. It does take a while. What an attorney does, an attorney talks to you first. There are many businesses out there that take Social Security clients. I actually had a client that I already was representing him for Social Security disability. He called me almost panicked that someone called him, just let's call him Jim, called him and said to my client, Mr. Jones, I'm going to represent you in your Social Security disability case. And Mr. Jones said, you can't. I already have an attorney. I've talked to your doctor, and your doctor says I'm supposed to represent you. And with that, the person calling named his doctor. Now, how he got his doctor's name, I have no idea. I called the doctor's office. Nobody seemed to know how this unknown caller got Mr. Jones's doctor's number and his disability. Mr. Jones, my client, called me. What is this about? It's happening more and more. How it happens, the doctor didn't know. And of course, the doctor didn't call this person and say, here's what Mr. Jones has, calling. Doctors don't do that. As a matter of fact, the doctor's office manager called me and was awfully upset. And the client is still with me. But there are some businesses out there, disability, so I forget the names of them. They do Social Security disability, and they're not in this state. They're in other states. You don't get to come in and talk to people and bring your medical records if you have them and tell the person up front and what your disability is. And I'm not sure that you talk to the same person when you call California or Denver or wherever. I, for one, would like to see my attorney. I'd like to know my attorney. I'd like to help my attorney get all my medical records. I'd like to know what my attorney thinks about my case. I'd like to know that my attorney is an attorney so that there is some backup there if my attorney should just not follow through and not present my case correctly. These businesses that do this are just getting more and more prevalent. And some of them are the ones that when I said, be careful when you log in, those are the ones that are advertising. I'm not talking badly about them, but they're not who I would like representing me if I was disabled. I'd like to be able to call my person, talk to my person, and know that my person is an attorney. If we haven't covered everything for you this morning, we only have a minute or so left. Call the office, area code 317-631-5151. I'll be glad, or if I'm not available, my paralegal to make an appointment for you to come in. If you need an appointment before you apply, before you even fill out the application, I can make the appointment or I can talk to you about the application. It is not difficult. It is not. It's a little bit of reading, but it's not difficult to follow. And certainly put on a calendar. I don't care where you put it, on the refrigerator, somewhere. When you get a denial, don't let those 60 days pass because you have to refile then. Any questions you have, call the office tomorrow, not tomorrow morning, Monday morning or Tuesday, whenever, and ask for me and I'll be glad to help you. You've been listening to legally speaking, we are Nathaniel Lee. Our address, 531 East Market Street. And for those that have been clients previously, we have parking. We have a new building and parking on both sides of our building. No more going through the garage and getting a ticket and all of that. We paid for parking previously, but now we have parking available. And nobody pays. It's our parking lot, both sides of the building. Call us and we'll be glad to talk to you. If you need, talk to me about retirement, that type of Social Security, I can help you with that too. Thank you for listening. And either I or Nate will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.